Um, Hello, everyone. Hey, Jimmy, where's the speaker notes?
What? You've broken it already? See, this is why I didn't want him here.
Oh, no, it's the next one. Oh, good. Just testing him. Everyone, my name's Robertino Zambrano. It's really such a privilege to be asked to speak at Node, and I'm super excited to be here. And man, all the talks today that we've seen and yesterday too have been so amazing. So I feel privileged just to be part of this. I'm going to talk about what I think is maybe one of the most important ideas for creatives today, and for myself personally. And it's the idea of finding your own voice. And I'm going to do this by sort of reflecting on my own creative journey. So we live in a noisy world, and we know this feeling. We're constantly assaulted by creative FOMO. The algorithm enslaves us. It tells us what we should make and how often we should make it, which is like every day or twice a day. Put something on there, right? And to top it all off, the idea of AI seems to be sort of threatening the idea of our life's work as we know it, that we've spent crafting and developing. But I believe, we can rise above this noise. And I think the key to this is finding and developing the idea of your own voice, or the sense of your own creative voice. So it's obviously easy to say, but for most of us, or for everyone, it takes a lifetime to develop, and even then it never stops evolving. So in this sense, I'm very much a work in progress. But I hope a bit of my story, which I'm going to tell, can help you along your journey, because even putting this presentation together for me did make me realize a few things about my creative journey. So I'm going to start, with the idea about like different journey phases. And most of us start the journey aiming for the base level need, and that's just finding a job, right? So a little bit about me and sort of the jobs that I've held, or that I hold now. And I prefer to call them labels in a way, because I think we do so many different things these days that we don't fit into one category. I'm a director, animator, designer, a producer, a business owner, and more recently started to call myself a writer, among other things that all these like vast things we make pull us into. I'm also the founder of Kapwa, a creative studio specializing in animation. I started that about in 2013. I'm also a director represented by Nexus Studios, and by nature of that, I work a lot with Mighty Nice, who's also a Nexus company based in Sydney. So a bit about my early journey is that I didn't start out in motion or film. My career was quite meandering, and which is pretty normal, as we've seen from a lot of the talks today. And it started off just trying to build a portfolio and find experience. I studied Viscom at UTS and did my first internship at Ambience Entertainment. I interned, and for a very, very long time, even until now, I work with a small production house called A7 House Films. He's run by Luke Torrevillas. He's one of my biggest mentors, even until to this day today. My first design job out of uni was at a flag factory in Vineyard near Windsor in Sydney, because I couldn't get the design job at any of the studios right away. And I was pretty much designing used car sale flags for dealerships along Parramatta Road. Riveting stuff. But, and then I spent a few years working as a digital designer, mainly as a Flash animator, and mainly making banner ads. So they used to call us banner bitches. But doing these banner ads, they did help me realize how much I really loved animation. And I'd find I was ending up forcing as much of that craft into that job. And that's like an early banner I made there, and so Westpac, and back then the limits were like get under like 200 kilobytes or less, and but I really wanted to like push some 2D animation in there. And that realization drives that next step in most people's creative journeys, and that's finding the job you want. So trying to define that job a bit more. I knew I really wanted to be a motion designer, and I was sort of trying to force my digital, web design job into that. But, it wasn't 100% it, and I knew it. I had an idea of where I wanted to be, but I wasn't quite sure how to get there, but I was keen on figuring it out. So for most of our careers, the search for creative purpose or finding your voice is based mainly on instinct. Things fall in our path that excite us, they intrigue us, so sometimes they might not feel like much of a lead at all, and we can choose to chase them. So I call these like opportunity seeds. During uni, I had a chance introduction to a creative director called Nick Law, who worked in an ad agency in New York called RGA. And that planted a seed in my journey for me. And I was at second year uni at the time. I showed him my shitty portfolio at the time. Second year, you kind of don't have really anything on you. And he said, if you're ever in New York, just come say hi. I took that as an invitation to try and get a job at his company. 2 years later, I'd finished uni and I'd freelanced for a couple of years. And I'd mostly written that idea of working in New York. I'd written it off as a pipe dream, but it scratched at my mind, so I decided to chase it. I planned a backpacking trip to the US just to try and get jobs, cold calls, set up meetings and interviews. I didn't have enough motion work in my portfolio at the time, so I manufactured a show reel and made bits of 2 to 3 second, fake shots, enough to make it look like I had a full, solid reel that I was happy with. It's enough to fake it. We all know it's fake it till you make it. That's how you do it. We're in the business of illusion. But, so I called heaps of studios actually while I was in Sydney to try and set up the interviews, booked all these hostels, and I made it partly a backpacking crazy trip as well as a job hunting trip. Back then, no USB drives. I had a portfolio of DVDs in a box, and I carried that around in my luggage. I had no idea what I was doing. I got a few good interviews at some studios. When I was in New York, I ended up freelancing for Digital Kitchen. They couldn't get me in the office at the time, and they ended up doing work for them out of the common space in the hostel. That was crazy. But beyond that, nothing came of that trip. So I went home. But that's a lie. I did meet the Red Power Ranger while I was on a hostel bar crawl in LA. It's the original one, Austin St. John. But that's another story. You can get that off me over a beer sometime. So, seeds that get planted sometimes grow. So months later, I did get an email back and a job offer from RGA. So I took it and I moved to New York. I spent 4 years at RGA living in New York. I finally made the full transition into a full-time motion designer while I was there, eventually working my way up to be an art director. I made some super fun projects. It was such an amazing time. And I'd probably say I'd made some of the best friends of my life there. But it was also the hardest working time in my life. And also the hardest partying of my life, but that was awesome. There were some really fun projects. We worked on massive clients, and the learning curve for me was huge. But working in the motion department of an in-house of an ad agency also meant you made a shitload of case study videos. We all know this. This is the stuff that doesn't make it to the portfolio. I really hate case study videos. They're like advertising for the advertising industry. And by the end of that job, I felt so distant from the idea of motion design and animation that I really wanted to do. So I was looking for work which had more narrative depth. I think that was what I was looking for, right? And more illustrative crafting, which is, my original background. I love to draw, and that was lacking. So I knew there was more out there, but it's hard to figure out what direction to push into. And there's this idea of, okay, look, I know the job I want, but you're trying to then do another step and refine and figure out that idea even more. Back then, I still was quite young and didn't really know everything about what I liked, and I could really only divide the kind of work into two categories, and that's stuff that's cool and stuff that's not cool. But that's enough. It's enough of a compass to go off because it reflects what you like. So I'm going to jump to this story, this seed, which sat in the cool part of that spectrum. In my last year in New York, I met Melissa Johnson, the documentary director and writer. She'd written an autobiographical script called Love in the Time of March Madness, and it was about being a 6'4" woman and trying to find love. I absolutely loved the script. My instincts told me to take this project on. I'd never done a full film in my life. I studied at Viscom, I didn't do film school, didn't really know how to tee up that kind of project. But I said, this is good, and something I can do on the side, and weekends and nights, and it'll be cool, and you'll have a film in like a year. It's not a year. But, it fell very strongly in that cool side of the spectrum. But little did I know how much this decision would affect my life. But before I go into that, I'll cycle back to my last year in New York. After 4 years in New York, I moved back to Sydney, partially to try to salvage an old relationship. And I was also homesick, burnt out, and felt really far off centre. And coming off that, there are times when the sense of that instinct totally disappears. Moving back home was tough. I had trouble fitting back into Sydney life. The relationship thing didn't work out, and I wasn't in a great place. So I threw myself into my freelance work, and I pushed along with the short film in the background. Around that time too, I remember taking quite a few trips back to the Philippines. And for me, these were kind of like silent seeds which were planted for stuff that happened much later in life. I have a journalist cousin who took me up to an area called the Kalinga region in the Mountain Province in the Philippines. Before that, my relationship with the Philippines was either going to Manila, being in the hardcore city, or going to the islands. And going up to the mountains was a totally different experience for me. I ended up meeting up with this really strong artist community in Baguio and visiting some amazing cultural museums and seeing a totally different side of my culture, which I hadn't had a relationship with before. I also ended up getting tattooed in the old Batok style by a legendary Kalinga artist named Wang Od. I remember walking away from these trips sort of, rejuvenated with this new perspective. I guess it's like the idea of having a cultural identity that I felt a part of and didn't know about, and it became more of a thing for me. And that idea sort of grew in the back of my mind. And that brings me to this idea the idea of vision. At some point in your journey, maybe sometime you'll start to get a blurry sense of a vision. So during that Philippines trip, I became familiar with the term kapwa while I was there. It's a Tagalog word. Colloquially, it just means like fellow man, fellow being, countryman, or neighbor. But the underlying idea is something more. And in short, it's a recognition of a base level of interconnectedness between people. I researched the concept a little bit more, and it resonated with me in some way. And I couldn't put a finger on it, but I liked the idea that our creative output could, play some role in connecting people together. And there was a sense of excitement around this term, even though I didn't really have a clear vision on what I wanted it to be for me. So I ended up starting up a studio named Kapwa later when I got back to Australia. It's a name choice which for me represented a tiny rebellion against the Western-centric image of the design world. It was also a hint of how I wanted to approach my work. It was an inkling of an approach to work with a sense of purpose, which I'd try and connect later on in my career, even though I didn't really know what it was just yet. So sometimes you don't need full clarity on this idea of vision of what you want to do, and sometimes you just go ahead and just do the work. It's impossible sometimes to even get that full clarity. And sometimes it's just a thread, and all you need to do is just start pulling on that thread and then see what happens. One of those threads was my first video for TED-Ed, The Science of Stage Fright. TED-Ed offered so much creative freedom, and I sensed this was a really good opportunity to try and make a mark with my work. My friends Kirill and Gerrit at TED encouraged me to enter the project into an animation festival called Annecy. I had never heard of this festival before, but they had just gone the previous year with another TED-Ed project, and they said, it would be life-changing. I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I entered the video into that festival, and it got selected, and we got selected to screen in the commissioned films program, which is where all the commissioned and paid productions go, commercials, etc. But this exciting turn of events, brought me to France for my first time, for my first film festival experience. And it was awesome. Annecy was like super eye-opening for me. For the first time, I was surrounded by like so many artists and filmmakers, really like honestly, genuinely creating experimental work, trying to express their voice, trying to tell stories which, trying to make a splash out there. I met some really amazing people, and it changed my life for the better. Up there, I met Adam Elliott, who's a Oscar winner for his short film, and he's an Aussie. And I also met Alex Grigg, who is a fellow Nexus director and super talented animator, whose film The Phantom Limb was screening in the short film program at Annecy. I kind of hope quietly to myself too that one day I'd be able to have my own short film screening in the short film program. But Alex was so generous in introducing me to the animation film world, and he was kind enough to introduce me to Darren Price, the founder of Mighty Nice in Sydney. And Darren eventually offered me a job as a director at Mighty Nice. Working at Mighty Nice was a massive boot camp for me of sorts. Coming from a hardcore motion background, I didn't yet consider myself an animation director. And I was just used to winging it and flying by the seat of my pants. But Darren and Alex taught me how to direct and lead a team, level up my craft, and brought a lot more rigor to my creative process. And I met some of the most amazing artists there and learned how to work with artists infinitely more talented than myself. And everything I learned there changed me a lot for the better. But during this time, I was still foolishly whittling away at love in the Time of March Madness all by myself. We had only 1.5 minutes of animation done of a 9-minute script, and by then it had dragged out to 3 years of production, and I was ready to quit. I could feel the pressure of Melissa wanting it to be finished, and rightfully so, but I'd lost all motivation. Melissa made me a crazy proposition. Let's just finish it no matter what the quality is, and we'll enter it into film festivals, and we'll set ourselves a deadline of November, this year. For me, a perfectionist, this was a difficult pill to swallow. And honestly, I just said yes because it was an excuse to get the project off my back. It turned into a dark cloud by then. So we whipped together a whip edit. Literally 30% was only animated, and the rest was made up of blank caption shots driven by a voiceover. And I'm still shaking my head at the audacity of it. But we made a big list of film festivals to enter. In my head, I was like, there's no way we'll hear anything back. We'd sent it to Sundance, Cannes, everything. And as expected, we received a flood of rejections. Polite rejections, hard rejections, or just straight up crickets. It's exactly what I expected. But a few months later, we did receive this little email from the Tribeca Film Festival programming team. It was November. In my mind, there's like no bloody way we could do this. But Melissa and I debated. Melissa told me they wouldn't write this if they weren't thinking of having the film in the festival. So we wrote back, of course. So the reality is sometimes the seed you plant come back to consume you. So I pulled out all the stops and I called in all the favors. It was an amazing position to be in, but we still didn't know if we were actually accepted in. But we all knew then that we had to have a crack. So I pulled my socks up and actually planned out the rest of the film like a normal person. We went through pre-production, made the storyboards, because before that, I was doing it out of my head. And and obviously you need to do this to get help. So yeah, we boarded it up, and I got people to help on and jump on and help me finish the film. Something I wish I'd done at the very start. But we kept pushing, and there were so many shots. I was just thinking, oh my God, this looks so shit. But I had to let go and just keep going. You know, like the deadline was real, and we just scraped it across. 2 weeks later, we got an email from Tribeca. By some miracle, they selected our film to screen in an official competition. We were going to Tribeca Film Festival, and I was like, I'm a legit filmmaker. I literally make film. So we went to New York in 2014 for Tribeca, and it was a bloody amazing experience. You know, we met so many other filmmakers, other directors, other producers, and you know, having your film screen in theaters all around the city. You know, it's a city I used to live in, and it was just mind-blowing to be in that position. I even got to meet Robert De Niro, but I couldn't get the photo because the guy was getting swarmed. So I only managed to whip out a photo of him saying hi to someone else. And when I say meet, I'm all kind of squirmed in for a quick handshake and said something like, oh, my name's Rob, great name. It was something cheesy like that. I can't remember. But I met him. But this is more I could have ever wished for my film. It's all a bonus round. But to top it off, we ended up winning the Best Short Film Online Audience Award at Tribeca with our film. Tribeca started a chain reaction, and we got flooded with invitations to dozens of other festivals around the world. It was an amazing experience. I wish I could go into each of these trips to some of these festivals, but you know, we'd be out of time. But it was truly one of the best experiences of my life. But nothing could make us happier than to find out that the film had been selected to screen in Annecy. And it felt good to return to Annecy in the short film program. So from Annecy, our film was selected to be in the animation show of shows, which eventually qualified us for Oscars consideration. By this time, I was already thinking, wow, so much crazy shit has already happened. But who knows? So who put the application into the Academy? And it's literally just a form you fill out. No one asks you to enter. You just know that you've qualified. And you fill out this really bad form online. About 4 months later, we received an email. It had been shortlisted for the Best Animated Short for the Academy Awards. Bloody crazy. As you can imagine, there was tons of excitement. Our inboxes started getting flooded with emails from agents, and ended up getting lots of interview requests. It was like a mini boot camp in media training. I even ended up getting on a morning show interview on TV in the Philippines. And it also made me be the first Zoom conference pioneer before the pandemic. As me at Pixar, because I'd already come back to Australia then, and they were doing their road show with the films, and showing them off. And so Melissa was in the States, and she Skyped me in, man. How dope is that? On Oscars announcement night, we had friends and family over to stay up and watch the broadcast together to find out if we made the nominee final round of 5. On top of this, it's like the Academy PR people tell you to, hey, get all your family and friends together, do a barbecue. They really whip you up. And they say, when it's announcing, make sure you're filming and all this and that. And I'm just like, why are you telling me all this? It's like such a massive psych out. But still, this is one of my favorite memories to this day. I had, all my family and friends together. Even my cousins in the Philippines were tuning in, and they're on Skype. And they'd all dressed up in like formal clothes and sipping champagne. It was so good. But we didn't make the nominee round. And they had to be satisfied with being in the final 10. But it was such a huge high to come off. And the whole time you're telling yourself, this is all a bonus round. We didn't even get this far. I didn't even think I was going to finish this film. But you can't help in that 5 minutes leading up to the announcement, this might actually happen. I might actually have a reason to buy a tuxedo. But happily I did. I just got married in July this year, so. But, it was life-changing. This inspired me to have another crack. It validated the hard work. It taught me, anything is kind of possible. Not everything is possible, but, I think there's more possible than you think. It also taught me, most importantly, that there was a hell of a lot more people than I thought that are rooting for me. And I think that's for most people. There's a lot more people, really backing you up than you think you know. But it does go without saying, it opened up a lot of doors for me. But one of the most important lessons I learned from this was the art of finishing something. Sometimes just finishing something difficult is a great achievement in itself, and it doesn't have to be, super hot or the best thing you've made ever. But yeah, things don't always go up. I spent the next few years juggling, trying to come up with the next big project. But it's hard. A lot of the agents ghost you after you fall out of the limelight. I didn't do film school and didn't have a great filmmaking network. So I didn't know how to navigate that whole world of funding bodies and grants and all that support that is actually really good when you look at it, all the stuff offered by the state bodies and Screen Australia. I had a sense of purpose and direction, but I didn't know how to actualize it. And the reality of just having to work and keep making money to pay bills eventually got me to take a break from trying to chase that and just putting a head down and doing what I knew. So in the end, I chose to relieve myself of that burden of expectation. What's that next big film? And focus on, developing the commercial work and enjoying it. And it was a valuable time for me. I focused on just moving, putting one foot in front of the other, and doing the work through Kapwa. We worked with some really great artists. So many people have, helped me and the company make some amazing work over the years. And we've made some projects that have been really fulfilling. Another notable journey phase is sort of when I got caught up with this idea of finding my style. And the way social media worked made me think I was lacking in something cohesive in my body of work. But I love exploring such a wide range of styles, and I realized I didn't have the discipline or rigor to keep working in one style. It just wasn't me. And I finally became comfortable with that realization. It's a few people, We found out we got accepted to screen again in Annecy that year. And Annecy was stoked to find out we were awarded the Crystal for commissioned films. For me, this was a huge recognition to win something at this festival, which meant so much for me, and it changed so much for me. That's Derek and Elsa up there. And they're two artists who've always been in the background working on so many of Kapwa's projects ever since Kapwa's earliest days. And I'm so thankful to have those two. We partied super hard that night. But coming off the back of that Annecy win, I was super happy for Nexus Studios to reach out and ask if I wanted to join their director's roster. And it started off a new phase in my directing career. One of my favourite jobs with Nexus was working on the Not My Responsibility interlude for Billie Eilish's concert film, Happier Than Ever. It was amazing to work on a long-form project with a huge audience, and it felt really cool to have something up on Disney+. I screenshotted the credits and sent it to my parents, so they knew I'm on TV. Yeah, that was a really great project, and that was made with a mighty nice team. It was awesome. Chris Angelius did such an amazing job, bringing that together. It was like super rhythmic. And for me, this project, it was a campaign, so it was three films, and this is a pivotal experience for me. We created a 3-part doc-style series for an anti-smoking series for California tobacco control. This project sort of awakened an older part of my work ethic where, I felt like I'd left this behind for a while. I ended up interviewing dozens of different smokers to find the right stories for this campaign, and the whole interview process was awesome. I really enjoyed that. I think speaking with real people and sort of getting to know them and trying to craft a story which was supposed to make meaningful change was something I felt I was really missing from my creative practice. And something that was in that genesis of the word kapwa that I wanted to have in my practice before. And more recently, we made another series of doc-style animations for an anti-gambling harm-related charity in the UK. I directed this with Alex Grigg and as all producer Mighty Nice. Again, it was such a beautiful result, but it was another reminder of the kind of work that I really wanted to do. So around this time, and this was sort of entering the pandemic and coming out of COVID, just the last few years, I found all the other jobs started sort of blurring. I started losing interest in a lot of the noise that surrounded me. I think scripts, briefs, they all started feeling the same. And I was kind of struggling maintaining interest in a lot of the stuff that was coming across in front of me. The chase for cool aesthetics also started wearing on me a little bit, and it was something I loved doing a lot before. So I was like, what's wrong? I realized I was off center with my creative practice, and I just got a reminder of this idea of a sense of purpose, of voice with the last couple of jobs. And it's something I felt like I needed to chase. I'd recently attended a RevThink Accelerator program with Matt Taylor, and they mentioned this book whose title caught my ear. It's The Idea of Your Life's Work. It's by Stephen Pressfield. That phrase kind of stood out to me, your life's work. Like, what does that mean? Is there this idea of vocation with what we do with our work? So I Googled the book. The blurb excited me. We will find our will in our voice, and we'll find our self-respect. We become who we always were, but had until then been afraid to embrace and live out. It made me reflect what I'd been feeling for a while. I was unfulfilled in my work. I knew I wanted to get back on the filmmaking train, so I did what any self-respecting, attention-challenged millennial would do. I opened Amazon and I read the rest of the blurb. And I told everyone, it's a great book. Everyone should read Stephen Pressfield, but honestly, I think, it's on my reading list. I swear to God. All jokes aside, it did spur me to try and steer my creative journey a bit better. So I just started hunting, right? Trying to develop a house style just wasn't my thing. But, I tried to start developing the idea of a voice, this idea I wanted to find my voice. So I started the hunt looking for things I cared about, and I turned my sights back to my home country and started volunteering to do design work for a volunteer journalism outfit called Media Commoner. They had the simple but powerful premise of trying to explain the world better to people with a focus on issues affecting Filipinos. I went in with the idea of wanting to help make video docs and stuff for them, and but they didn't pan out. And these are some articles I ended up designing and helping them out with in the illustration. And it didn't do it for a long time. And to be honest, I kind of stepped away because I doubted maybe the full practical effect on my effort there. And it didn't feel this is the best sort of long-term outlet for what I was looking for. But that's just part of that normal journey of like trying to explore what you want to do is you try things out and experiment. And I'm still glad I helped them out a bit, and I really admire what the group's trying to do. I realized, however, that I was trying to find people that would give me briefs to fulfill the things I wanted to tell, which is the nature of us as designers. Most of us coming from a design background is that we're problem solvers. We get a brief and then we solve a problem around the parameters of that brief. But I think I was trying to find something outside of that. And I realized the best way to do this was to create my own seeds. I could design them how I wanted. I felt a shift in my drive, and I wanted to focus on writing and creating original stories and concepts. I really wanted to make things that matter, whether for the world or for me personally. Oh, all the fonts are not here. So I put myself on a mission. I was going to try and learn to be a writer. This idea of being a writer-creator. It's a totally new thing, and I had no idea how to get going with this. So this is my first foray into seriously trying to put together an original content project. And this was conceived with my writing partner, Adam Alexander from Bam Bam Wolfgang, a super talented music house in Sydney. The Sleep Creatures is an animated fantasy adventure for kids based on mythical creatures. But in this world, we sort of gave the limelight to lesser-known, underrepresented mythologies of the world. We ended up getting some great meetings and interest in this concept, and we took it on a pitch run in LA. We met with Netflix, Sony Pictures, Nickelodeon, and Disney. And for me, this was a totally new thing, pitching to networks and stuff. And we cut our teeth doing it and made heaps of mistakes, learned a lot, but it was awesome. We learned so much from that experience, and I felt myself evolve as a creator and writer. We're now in the process of developing this into a feature film script. So I'll talk a little bit more about some other projects that have started since then in this new writer-creator identity. One of the new concepts, as I see it, was for a film called Anito. I drew this a lot for my trips back to the Philippines over the years. And this is about a young Filipino-Australian who travels back to the Philippines, familiar, for his grandmother's funeral, falls ill, and gets reunited with his dormant ancestor spirit. They connect and grow together and go on a wild journey. And it's a drama. It kind of explores ideas of sort of third culture kid issues, like mystical themes of animism, and it's sort of this idea of intergenerational memory and destiny. Currently in the process of outlining this film, so it's quite early on, but I'm super excited about this concept. I'm also developing a comedy drama series called Fish Boy. It's about a fish delivery kid working for his family's Philo General Store, trying to make it big in Sydney. We're going for a bit of a combo between high maintenance and Atlanta with this animation. In a way, for me, this project's a move to not only share all the crazy stories from the culture, from our childhoods, but sort of a way for our culture to be seen. Earlier this year, we were encouraged by someone at SBS to enter this piece into a few programs. Before that, it was just a one-page thought bubble idea. But telling someone about it motivated me to push the project forward, write something up, and enter it into the various program grants. And it's amazing what can happen when you put yourself on the line by just telling someone about something you want to make. And I can't say anything just yet, but we'll be able to share some really good news for Fish Boy, and I'm super excited for this project to get going. So stay tuned. And lastly, we're also developing an animated music documentary series called Mute the Algorithm. So Mute the Algorithm explores the international music landscape, uncovering unseen artists with unexpectedly powerful life stories. And it's told through an anthology format of animation styles. In this project, I've actually taken on more of a producer role. I was approached by the creators, Harry Stott and Bennett Sarah, and they were creators of a music radio show called Music Map. And I kind of came in to help them bring this project to life. So we're currently in the process of pitching this and trying to get some funding together and just trying to make it happen. And I'm really enjoying trying to wear this different hat, and I've learned a lot on this journey. But yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons I received while on my pitch runs for Sleep Creatures was to focus on developing stories that reflected your own authentic experiences. A common question, like many pitch programs ask writer creators, is, can you answer, why this project, why you, why make this now? And I now kind of apply this to any new project or idea that I come up with. And I help if finds elevate the idea, sort of interrogate it, if this is something worth me doing, or if I'm just chasing some trends happening in front of me at the moment. Writing and inventing a story world brought back an old creative adrenaline rush that had been missing for many, many years. I like the feeling that we were trying to make something difficult and something, crafting a story which had to hold up to an audience that could interrogate the idea and ask, is this boring? Why would I watch it? Do I love these characters? And I can smell it. I feel like I'm on the right track, and I'm working towards actualizing what I feel like my current creative purpose is, and I love that feeling. And that's what I think where you're most powerful as a creative, when you're making things you love or deeply care about. Because when you love something, you're more than happy to put in the hard work that it takes. You get past that initial excitement and short-term passion phase. You respect it, you want it to grow, and you end up crafting something that is uniquely and authentically from you, and not just an aesthetic reflection of whatever trends are out there at this current day. So, what does this mean for you? I think we have to try and tune out the noise which surrounds us, scattering us in all directions. Learn to filter the FOMO from the fuck yes. And, it's good to keep tabs on the latest software, technology, trends, but, don't get swept up in it. And if you find that thing that you love or care about enough, sustain your focus and excitement for years, then latch onto it. All the noise around us will just become tools or ways in, and not the be-all end all. So I challenge you, join me on this journey, rise above the noise, and you might just be on the brink of your own personal breakthrough. And just to finish off, just enjoy the journey. Life's not a series of unstoppable wins. There are peaks, there's valleys. Learn to enjoy the valleys as they give you time to step back and breathe, change and reflect. Don't be afraid of changing, and don't get caught up in following, what everyone else is doing. And, enjoy each part of the journey. Whoa. Find joy in making big, amazing things, but also equally love the quieter moments when you can focus on yourself and the people around you. Thank you.